No, we obviously did not get too much manure, although I'm sure that our family, friends, and neighbors have been wondering if we did. Before we get spreading this, however, I want to show you guys what we're planning on doing with this, where we got it in the first place, and a couple things that we're going to do to actually upgrade this massive pile of poo. But first, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Taylor, and I've been collecting manure every year for the better part of my adult life. And I've learned a few things along the way when it comes to using manure in the garden. Manure is the result of billions of microorganisms having the feeding frenzy of their life, all inside of the stomach and intestines of whatever animal gobbled down some grass. And many of these microbes survive the journey through the animal's digestive tract and make it out to the other side to populate the land on which they fall. These microbes are dope, but they're really only a small piece of the puzzle when it comes to optimal microbial diversity in your garden. And that's why I created a free ebook all about capturing and culturing indigenous microorganisms found right in and outside your unique ecosystem. I'll be walking you through some of the process and the usages of these IMOs later on in the video. If you want to learn more about them, go ahead and hit the link in the description and you can get access to instructions and recipes and start doing this yourself. There you go. Okay, so first off, how did we get all this manure? Well, I'll tell you, it didn't come easy. We live in an area that has many ruminant animals in and around town, but there are a few problems that we've faced. One is that much of the time, the manure has come into significant contact with pesticides and herbicides. Since a lot of these chemicals have the potential to stay intact, even through the digestive tract of a cow or a horse, we really want to avoid manure from animals that have eaten contaminated feed. We're going to be spreading this all over our garden, and in many cases planting straight into it. So a clean source can be difficult to find. My advice is to always ask, even multiple times, is there any non-organic feed being used to feed the animals? Any herbicides sprayed on the grass? It's something that could cost you a season of growing or more. You might as well double check on it. We have a buddy who lives 20 minutes north of town who has a good amount of clean manure, but we don't have a truck, and it takes a lot of effort for me to drive up there, bag up the manure, load it into the back of our Nissan, and then drive it back. We've done it plenty, but it isn't the most time and energy efficient. For this stuff, I found someone selling deliveries of manure 5 yards per load for 150 bucks a load. So struck a deal, got a few $100 off of 3 loads. And this is actually mule manure. It's had the chance to decompose or age for several years, meaning that it's more or less ready to go on the garden with little risk of burning our plants. It's basically soil at this point. I was happy to shell out for this, especially at a fraction of the cost of bulk organic compost being delivered. Now, about a week prior to spreading out the manure on the ground, I made some IMO 4. Now, if you're unfamiliar with IMO, basically what we're doing here is we're culturing the microbes, very specific ones, the microorganisms caught in the forest using brown rice as a food source, and then I preserve them in brown sugar to make them go dormant, and then diversify the microbes by feeding them to wheat bran as a food source, along with some other nutrients. And that just describes the process of making IMO 1, 2, and 3, all of which is covered in our free ebook, The Beginner's Guide to IMO. We also have videos on all of that we'll link to. And using the IMO 3, I made IMO 4 by mixing it with equal parts native soil from our yard, along with the K&F nutrients, OHN, FPJ, apple cider vinegar, and sea salt in dechlorinated water. And after this had a week to integrate and further diversify, I was ready to use. So to make this IMO 4, I had to culture it in a plastic tote indoors, which is not ideal. Usually you want to culture it touching the bare ground, but that wasn't quite an option because of the freezing temperatures that we're experiencing right now. It's just a little bit too cold to reliably make IMO 4 outside. But after waiting for the IMO to finish, I was ready to start spreading the manure through our garden. In spots of the garden that we already had established, I only applied a few inches of manure. In brand new garden beds, I tried to make it nice and thick, about 6 inches deep. The method that I'm using here is called the deep mulch approach. It's got plenty of other names as well, but the basic idea is that I'll be planting directly into this material this coming season. Over time, the microbes in the soil will help break down the manure even further, whilst also carrying the pre-existing soil upward into the manure, achieving a very slow mixture of materials. And to speed this up, I'm also going to be applying some very gentle digging fork prodding to the ground once it's warmer and easier to work. The idea here is that we're not tilling per se, but the compaction of the soil beneath gets to slowly break up. Manure can fall down a little bit, little by little, and hopefully over the course of a single season, this ground will be converted into optimal growing space. Now, before spreading out the manure, I also spread out a very thin layer of crushed up homemade charcoal. and then I spread the IMO 4 on top of the charcoal, and then I topped it off with some Bokashi food scraps. And there's a lot going on here, so let's just get into exactly what is going to be happening over the next few months before we plant. First of all, microbes. Microbes are born travelers. They get carried on the wind, they travel across continents and oceans, even on the daily. They're extremely resilient, adaptable little creatures. However, soil microbes can also be a bit too accommodating. Their genetic coding changes quickly to adapt to new environments. Some microorganisms will consume others and incorporate parts of their DNA into their own microscopic bodies. Incredible. We're going for maximum diversity in our garden. So the more little guys swimming around in our garden soil, the more options that our plants will have to recruit the exact microbes that they need to deliver nutrients, to receive protection from pathogenic bacteria and fungi, and all of that. If you're dozing off right now, please hang in there because this gets really interesting. When we make IMO 4, we're introducing the microorganisms that we caught from the forest to the microorganisms found in our native garden soil. When they meet, they get to know each other, and no one group can exactly dominate the other. They integrate with each other, learn to work together, adapt their DNA, yes, but they retain diversity through this process. Slapping them down on the soil outside is a bit of another transition for these guys, so we give them a nice home. And that's where the charcoal comes in. Now, I've called this activated charcoal in the past and received a lot of pushback against that. A lot. So for the sake of keeping friends, I'm just gonna call this charcoal. But you may have heard of this is referred to as activated charcoal or just charcoal. So charcoal, especially when it's properly made, is highly porous. So porous, in fact, that a gram of charcoal contains approximately the same amount of surface area as several tennis courts. This means that there's a lot of space for microbes to inhabit. It's like an apartment building for the IMO 4. Charcoal also soaks up a lot of nutrients found in the organic matter surrounding it. So after a few weeks of soaking up all the goodies, we've got stacks on stacks of eco-friendly, practically non-biodegradable material in the soil, which is why biochar is known as a sort of permanent compost. It lasts for a very long time without breaking down. Long after my great-great-great-grandchildren will show up, this stuff will still be here, supplying microbes with a home. Charcoal is incredible stuff for the garden. The key is that it has a few weeks or months to absorb nutrients from its surrounding organic matter prior to planting. Otherwise, it will soak up nutrients straight out of the plants and stunt their growth, or worse yet, kill them. Along with the charcoal, in some areas I'm laying down some Bokashi food scraps. This is kitchen waste that has undergone anaerobic fermentation to preserve the nitrogen and other nutrients in the food. Like charcoal, it's good to put down Bokashi food scraps a month or so before planting because it takes a while being in contact with organic matter or soil for the Bokashi scraps to break down into soil. The microbes in the Bokashi will also feed the soil biology. We inoculated our Bokashi brand with native lactobacillus that we caught and cultured right here on site. If you want to see a video on exactly how we make it, you can check out our videos. We'll leave links to those in the description. So we put the Bokashi down where we get the sense that the soil needs a boost of nutrients. Then finally we lay down the manure. And for this, we just used a shovel and a hard rake to create relatively even beds. This stuff will settle over time and we'll be adding to it a little bit year after year with more compost to keep the organic matter flowing. But for now, to cap it off, as always, we want to make sure that we add a healthy mulch layer. In this case, we just have an abundance of leaves from the fall season. So we're spreading these on top. The leaves are going to help hold in moisture. They'll protect the top layer of the garden soil from direct contact with the elements. And they're also going to break down very slightly to start to feed the organic matter in the soil. They'll also feed the microbes so that they can continue to multiply. In our experience, leaves are one of the easiest ways to stimulate healthy fungal and bacterial growth. So to answer the original question, no, I don't think we got too much manure. I hope we could give you some ideas or kickstart whatever garden project you've got going on this coming season. And if you need further inspiration, you can sign up for our newsletter and stay up to date as we're about to release our inflation-proof garden course coming up toward the end of this month, depending on when you're watching this. And you can get access to a massive discounted price. Sign up if you want to be a part of our course launch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.